So what do you plan on doing about the jet problem in our community?
How about the settlement problem? Another settlement needs our help. I'll mark it on your map.
Video games are often giving you really important tasks. Whether it be saving princesses, saving a world, or saving the universe, no matter what task it gives you, it's always really urgent. If you don't defeat the super evil bad man demon, then the entire world will end and it's going to be all your fault. And yeah, this makes sense in some games. I mean, video games are supposed to give you goals to accomplish so that you feel a sense of satisfaction. But here's a weird idea. What if video games didn't task you with saving the world? What if there was no urgency in video games? What if video games just let you play them? Now, I know this sounds really pretentious to ask for from video games. After all, the whole concept of a game is to have a task that you need to complete, and if you don't complete it, then you've lost the game, but if you do complete it, then you've won the game. But sometimes a game can be really fun, but the stuff that it's asking you to do isn't. For example, when you're giving Fallout 4, the game gives you this giant open world to explore with tons of stuff in it. And yeah, I want to explore it, but instead of having me explore this world, they have some guy run up to me and tell me,
Another settlement has sent word that they need our help. I'll mark it on your map. Go find out what they need.
I don't want to do any of that. That just sounds boring. I want to explore the world that you've spent years making. Yet instead of letting me explore this world, you're asking me to go around your world and just look at things and help other NPCs. I really don't want to do that. This is my problem when games give you urgent tasks that are really important. It's always impeding something that could be way more fun. And video games technically never force you to do anything. That would make them movies. But when you avoid the task that the game is telling you to do, it feels like you're ignoring the fate of the universe. It feels like you're procrastinating, and when a game makes me feel like I'm avoiding the game, that doesn't feel great. The biggest problem I have is when I'm doing something that's more fun than the main game, but that doesn't feel like part of the main game. I could go around in Dark Souls and break every barrel I see and I would have a blast, but that doesn't feel like what I'm supposed to do. There's value in finding your own fun in video games. That's what makes some of these video games really fun. But it'd be more fun if the stuff I wanted to do was the stuff it was telling me to do. A good example of a game that does this is Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. In Breath of the Wild, you're given a clear goal that you have to complete. You need to defeat Ganon. You can actually go to Ganon's castle and beat him at any time. Under this kind of game design, it makes the world feel like you're not procrastinating, you're preparing for this final battle, and every second you spend in the game feels meaningful. Well, almost every second. When you go around finding heart pieces, it doesn't feel like the game's forcing you to do it. It feels like you're doing it because you want to increase your chances of survival. It never feels like the game is trying to tell you to do something other than what you're always doing. After all, there's really only two things you need to do in Breath of the Wild, and that's get off of the Great Plateau and then defeat Ganon. Everything else is completely optional. Even completing the 4 major dungeons in the game is completely optional. You don't need to do them. You can just go right ahead and skip to Ganon at any time. In doing this, the game makes it so that whenever you go to a dungeon, you never do it because the game is forcing you to. It's never part that you are required to do. It's always because you go there because you want to go there. Now, I'm not saying every game should be like this. If every game was like this, there would be no direction in any game, and that wouldn't be very great. It's nice to have these big cinematic experiences that are really guided, because those can be valuable too, because some of them give some really cool set pieces. All I'm trying to say is instead of having a bunch of games change how they work, I'm saying more games should come out that are like this. Grand Theft Auto 5 prides itself on being an open-world sandbox experience, where the entire world is truly a playground for the player. If that was the case, then why do I have to do these missions? Why is the game forcing me to do some missions that I don't want to do? You're a sandbox game, you're not a story-driven game, yet that feels like what Grand Theft Auto seems to be doing as of late. Just having these missions kind of goes against the sandbox nature of the game. It's supposed to be a game where you can go and do whatever you want. Why is it restricting where I can go and forcing me into a linear section? It doesn't make any sense. There's games other than Zelda that can take this non-urgent game design and run with it. In this relatively obscure indie game called else.heartbreak, you are put into a city where the game tells you to go and become a soda salesman. But with the way the game presents itself, it doesn't feel like you need to do that, it's just kind of a suggestion. The game has tons of other mechanics that have nothing to do with soda. In this case, the gameplay mechanics that the game tells you you're supposed to be doing is so vapid that it encourages you to do other things because selling soda is so boring. I don't know, unless you're into that kind of thing. By having the game tell you to do such an intentionally boring gameplay mechanic, it encourages you to try all of the other stuff the game has to offer. And the game becomes a playground for the player to do whatever they want, whenever they want, and whatever they feel is entertaining. This is further elaborated on with the hacking mechanic that it added, which allows you to literally rewrite the code of certain objects in the game. Now most games would put a limit on what you can do because they don't want you to break the game, but in this game it lets you hack literally whatever you want. In addition, it doesn't use any simplified hacking mechanics, it gives you real code and you have to learn a programming language to play this part of the game. But by learning this mechanic, you get free reign over the entire game. You can go up to slot machines and hack them so that instead of taking money from you, it gives you money. There's a main storyline, but the game lets you skip the entire thing using hacking, because you're a hacker. You don't play by the rules. The game doesn't put up any artificial boundaries in front of what you can do with the hacking mechanic, so it's really up to you. The game becomes what you make of it. It becomes this really peaceful experience where you don't have to do anything. If you want to go make a bunch of money by hacking slot machines, go ahead and do it. If you want to program a video game cabinet inside the video game, you can go do that. If you just want to chill at the cafe and drink some coffee, you can go do that. If you just want to chill and listen to the radio by some peer, you can do that. And the game is not going to stop you from doing it at all. Instead of having the game designer be the dictator of the player's experience, it's much better to have the player do what they want and make their own experience. Take a shot for every time I say the word experience in this video. Yeah, it's a really risky thing to do in game design. Not every player is going to have an enjoyable gameplay session because of this, but the ones who do have a really enjoyable time with the game are going to have a blast. It's going to separate the two play sessions into two things. Something similar to a guided tour through an amusement park, or an actual adventure. And I don't think there's many people who hate adventures. I mean, are there? I mean, this is starting to devolve into a discussion about adventures and open world game design, but I'm also going to relate it back to urgency, don't worry. Maybe it's just how I grew up. I'm not a fan of hearing people tell me what to do. One of the best examples of non-urgent game design has to come from the penultimate example of this, Animal Crossing. These games are where you live in a village. Sometimes villagers will ask you to do stuff, but in general the games give you free reign to do whatever you want in these small villages. It's not forcing you to do anything, you can do anything you want in these games. And in doing so, it makes these games really, really relaxing to play. And great games to play when you're stressed out. If I'm freaking out about something, I'm not going to want to go and play a game where I have to save the world. That's really stressful, and that's really hard to do. I'm not going to play a super hard game like Dark Souls to get over that. I'm going to want to play a game where I can just relax in a fictional world. In general, Animal Crossing gives you a feeling of calmness. With the soothing melodies that play in the various areas of the day, and the scenery and the really nice lighting. It makes the games feel like you don't have a care in the world. Games are there to give you a fantasy to escape to. And games that let you escape to a relaxing fantasy world are some of the most calming experiences you can have when playing video games.